In the 90s, there was a wonderful marketing campaign that McCain ran, and it was called Daddy-O-Chips. Daddy-O-Chips. It was a little girl who had to choose between hugging her dad and eating McCain chips. And life was so simple in the past. We had product and we had marketing, and so we had Daddy-O-Chips. And then we chose the hard route and become product marketers. And it's actually such a joy to be here because we have a profession, we have a function, we have a role. We did choose a very hard life of choosing Daddy-O-Chips, product and marketing, but I think it is probably the most rewarding function in business today because it combines so much of customer empathy and market research and commercial and go-to-market and marketing and growth and product. And I can't think of a better way to drive business outcomes. So my own journey into product marketing has been literally that, from product to marketing. And everything you see on the right was product, and everything you see on the right was product, and everything you see on the left is product marketing. And the reason why O2 is so is sort of in the center is because that was the junction in which our divisional CEO came over and said, from the States actually, and said, the way you do product is all wrong. We have to do it the Californian way. We have to separate technical product management, and product marketing. And here's a letter. Which way do you want to go? And I think naturally, my sense of curiosity about how consumers behave, what they do, why they adopt products, has really made that decision very easy. Product marketing was the way to go. And like I said, we chose the hard life, but it's very, very rewarding. So before I tell you about Mars and Venus research, let me tell you about Culture Trip, which is a startup operating in travel and media. And here is a clip that introduces us to you and the world.
Culture Trip empowers people to explore the world's kaleidoscope of cultural differences via our website, app, social channels, and emerging technology. We connect people with local culture through our international community of content creators, a network of hundreds of writers, photographers, videographers, illustrators, and animators, based in inspiring locations all around the world. Our fast-growing audience are switched-on, independent, mature millennials. We motivate them to explore different locations, perspectives, trends, and ideas, to learn more, do more, see more, experience more. Join us on a culture trip.
So who's heard of Culture Trip on your travels, or used it on your travels? That's great. We love this graph. We love this graph because it shows traction. It shows traction and adoption, and we are in hyper growth. These are the kinds of statistics that are incredibly joyful to see. But here's the thing: when you are at an intersection of essentially three categories, and you're a disruptor, you're a challenger brand, and in order for you to understand why these graphs are the way they are, you have to ask another extremely hard question, which is, what inspires? As a challenger brand, you have to ask really deep, hard questions about your audience in order to really connect with them at an emotional and ultimately practical level. So, this is how the segmentation study came about, and by all accounts, it was very successful. We had over 50 press mentions. There were some amazing highlights. for our founder to be invited to Sky News. Myself, I had a career highlight on BBC Ideas to argue the case for cultural exploration. And there was a guest blog post that our founder wrote for the World Economic Forum, all on the back of the cultural mindset segmentation study. And I will talk about this as a project to illustrate the difference between market research and data science, which is an increasingly interesting challenge that product marketers need to tackle. But first, about segmentation. What is segmentation? Well, it's actually a process, a research process, to essentially make something that's really fuzzy into something a lot more distinctive, concrete, targetable, valuable, and sized. So you go from a very vague understanding of your audience as this kind of homogeneous, not quite sort of specific target audience into groups that you can understand, empathize with, target, and convert. But here comes the first hurdle and challenge, which is you've got loads of competitors to primary market research, and they're your data platforms. Google Analytics, Comscore, Looker, SimilarWeb, Amplitude, App Annie, and many, many more of these kinds of platforms that promise you to segment customers by their behavior. But here comes the first difference, which is segmentation is about category behavior in the market versus behavior in the products. So Google Analytics will tell you how they behave in your product. Comscore might give you a nice comparison about how you're getting tractions with audiences. SimilarWeb, the same competitive analysis, but that's just behavior in products. They're not really telling you much about motivations and attitudes and choices that people make in the category. And we talked a lot today about buyer personas, which is essentially what segmentation is. They're your buyer personas, because you need to know how people buy in the category, which is a fundamental outside-in approach. Everything else is an inside-out approach, from product outwards. Market segmentation is fundamentally outside in, how people behave in the category. So here's the project. The project itself, the cultural mindset study, is really Culture Trip's distinctive point of view in the travel and experiences market. We heard today a presentation from Booking.com. Airbnb was mentioned. We are in a highly competitive category. Very emotional one, but very competitive. So we need to have a distinct point of view to be the challenger brand, to drive disruption. And we used a mixed method approach over the course of 6 months. We interviewed experts in the category. We did vox pops in the street in New York and London. We did focus groups, very traditional discussion guides. We also did an online forum for a week where we ask questions ethnographically. And of course, this is kind of the core of this presentation, we did a quant survey. And overall, the project took about 12 months. We had 150 customer interviews, one-to-one interviews, and the survey in the end was 10,500 people. When I say in the end, because this was the amount of people that kind of qualified to take the survey because they were active in the category. When we started, we looked to social science. We looked to qualitative insights about travel and why people travel. And we were in good company with very, very clever books. We looked at the experience economy, third culture kids, the new demographic that grows up across, without borders. And we looked at the art of travel, which is why do people travel? And this brings me to a very important point about market research, is that by definition, compared to data science, it has a point of view. You have to inform, before you even start, what it is you want to achieve in the marketplace. What kind of position do you want to take as a brand? And having a point of view then becomes incredibly important. So what did we ask? And think about it as you look at the slide, is that your data platforms don't really ask those kinds of questions. Why are you curious? Where are you from? How did your family travel? Or kind of where is your family from? And how did you travel in the past? And what's important to you when you do? And these are all very personal, attitudinal questions that are essentially designed to find out the why. What inspires? Why do you travel? And that is the core, again, of what market research does compared to data science, which is guided conversations. When you think about your Vox Pops, your focus groups, even your survey, they're guided conversations, they're themed. You want to find out in order to establish your unique point of view. Whereas data science fundamentally looks at raw data and starts finding patterns in it. So it doesn't really have that kind of directional focus on trying to unearth a particular truth. And the reason why this is so important for marketers, and this is probably my most favorite quote in my sort of research, market segmentation research, is that if you address everyone, you kind of address nobody. And so the more specific you are about your target audience, your cohorts, your segments, your buyer personas, the more effective you can be at inspiring and ultimately at converting. Here comes trouble. Nobody could have predicted that this project will take as long as it did, or that it would be as hard as it was, but ultimately as rewarding as it was, if you think back at the coverage slide as well, because it is about Mars and Venus. Data science meets market research. Bias. We talked about guided conversations, but data science is very anxious about bias. And words become so important, and the way you phrase things becomes so important. And in fact, you could probably argue that data science is quite anxious about words. They're very happy about data and statistics, but quite anxious about words. And so let me give you an example. I have trouble adapting to new cultures. Or I find it easy to adapt to new cultures. It's a huge difference the way you ask the question and the kind of answer you're going to get. You can actually suffer in your research from social desirability bias or confirmation bias or all sorts of bias. And so it became this sort of semantic digging at whether or not the question was valid or the answer was valid. And we had to discount a few, I'd say about 3 or 4 questions that were potentially biased in the system. So the first thing that data science doesn't like is bias in the system. It challenges it very, very strongly. And market research is a lot lighter on that because it has to have a point of view. It has to dig into attitudes too. Trouble number 2, who knows what this is? Does anybody know what this graph looks like? Please.
Cluster analysis.
Thank you. It's a principal component analysis. The 3 letters that I'd never thought I'd learn, but I did. So this is the PCA that was run on the data and the 10,500 responses. Anyone heard of eigenvalues? Whoa, great. What is it? Yeah, so I didn't know what that was either, but it has to be more than 1. If it's below 1, it's no good. Right? Okay, so at that point, after doing so much foundational work about the point of view, the survey, the qualitative analysis, we switched company. And It's a very, very big book. It's that thick. Marketing Research and Applied Approach, all about statistical analysis. This is growth, personal growth, professional growth. We interrogated our statistical model not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times. And here's what happens when you interpret 10,500 responses. It's all about that idea of bias and tolerance. Data science wants 80% variation in data. I don't know what that means, but it needs to be above 80% to be credible. In market research, it's okay to be 60%. There has to be a perfect number of clusters here, perfect number of clusters. And anybody who's worked with segmentation before knows that people don't remember very many clusters. So we just picked 6 randomly, not randomly, but with a degree of sensitivity towards driving impact in the team to remember 6 clusters. But if the data tells you that there are 12, there has to be 12. This is what data science says. It has to be 12. But in market research, it's okay to have 6 and cluster them. And this is where fundamentally, again, just from a mindset point of view, the third difference is that as product marketers, we need to cluster people into groups to make our marketing activity efficient. Whereas data science is really the driving force behind personalization. It's that understanding of precision, one-to-one targeting, behavioral data, conversions that are almost perfect. That is what data science can help you, something that marketing segmentation doesn't, because it's inherently grouping people into bigger clusters. So, does that all mean that market research and quant research is invalid? Marketing meet data science. Life is all about probabilities of getting it right. And so this is again comes back to the 60%, the 80%, perhaps even smaller percent. It's all about the likelihood of you getting right. And ultimately, the resolution is a very, very doable one. What do customers want? They want to be understood, and they want to be helped. And ultimately, what that means is that the marketing piece, the marketing segmentation, and the product marketing side of our business operations helps consumers be understood. You talk to them attitudinally, you talk to them emotionally, you understand the problem that they're trying to solve for themselves, and you solve them. And then the data science bit helps. It does things that human curation or human marketers can't do, which is essentially serve the product at scale and at a level of personalization that will be impossible to do in marketing operations. And that's how you reconcile the two functions, and that's how you get them to work with each other. And dare I say, sort of 3 months on after the launch of the segmentation study, this is what we're doing. We are targeting and communicating with our customers in a way that helps them be understood. And then once they arrive at our product and we got them to engage and be interested and be curious in the travel proposition that we have, we help them. We help them find the right content. We match them to the experiences that they're interested in. And eventually we'll match them to the right accommodation too, now that we've launched our OTA. And so this is how Mars and Venus not only research, but collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. We have got about 5 minutes for questions, so please do carry on putting them through. The first question we've already got already. When a product has had success already, how do you convince teams to undertake more insights?
Fabulous question. The key word is success already. I think that even though the graphs are pointing in the right direction, the opportunity is vast. When you start off in the English-speaking countries, UK, US, yes, absolutely. There's not only room to grow, but travel is a global category. And so when you actually, when you say success already, it's limited success in the territory, and the world of opportunity is far, far greater. So if you want to scale, you have to undertake more insight in order to scale, to reach more audiences, to convert better, and ultimately either diversify your product set or reach even greater audiences worldwide. So that's actually not as much of a barrier as you'd think.
Just on that, have you faced internal pushback around that, and kind of have you had any arguments to help challenge?
Oh, arguments is, I'd call them debates. Yeah, I'd call them debates. I think the debate is always there, but we're very lucky because our founder is a clinical psychiatrist. So he is very much into insight and consumer research. The same goes for our head of product, who doesn't really want to have roadmaps that haven't been well researched, either through market opportunity or UX research. So it really is about methodology and perhaps that kind of level of tolerance and accuracy. So there's more debate about sample sizes than it is for the need for insight, which is actually, probably an evolution that I noticed in my career as well. The need for insight is no longer an argument. It's more like what kind of insight will drive the fastest, quickest impact in product development.
Wonderful. How long did you initially think the research would take as it overran? How did leadership stay bought in, or if it overran, I guess? How long did leadership stay bought in to continuing to push ahead? My dad used to say, it's sort of like about refurbishment projects, whatever you think it is, double it, then add 10%. And it's a little bit like this. When the proposals came in, it was originally sort of four months. I knew from my past experience, this was never going to take 4 months. So let's say in my mind's eye, it was going to take 6 or 7 months because we were a very small, nimble team. Taking it as long as it did is not something I expected because of that piece in the middle where we debated the statistical models. And how did we keep pushing on and had the buy-in from senior management? Well, this is because actually a good fraction of them have got PhDs in data science and they wanted to get it right. They understood that the investment is important, that it's the foundation of our company future growth. And so actually getting to compromise or getting to an agreement was the focus to get this research pushed through. So again, it wasn't really challenging the importance or the output of the project. It was more that middle bit where we really needed to find the best route forward to drive that statistical accuracy, but also, get a compromise solution pushed through. Wonderful. And then the last question, how does Culture Trip communicate how you help solve a problem that consumers may not know that they have?
How does Culture Trip communicate how you help solve a problem? Is that a question about unmet needs? Do you think that's what it is?
Or maybe they don't even know they have a need for what you're offering.
I think Culture Trip communicates through its content. Content is at the heart of what we do. It is the origin story. It is the origin story of a successful startup. And so we communicate through the product itself, the unique point of view, the quirky things you can do across your travels, the quirky things, the behind the scenes things, the off the beaten track, but also the classics. We cover those too. And that point of view comes across in the articles we write, in the illustration and animation that we use to illustrate our content, And so we communicate largely through what the content tells you. Our marketing activity has really been around experiential events and launching video series such as Hungerlust or Beyond Hollywood to really illustrate what you can do beyond the obvious in a destination. So everything we have done so far is really through demonstrating the product, the content, the wonderful experiences you can have on the ground. I'd say that 2020 was based on this foundational piece of research and our growth ambitions, having just launched the OTA as well. I think we will evolve into communicating those needs in a new product category more broadly, more in a kind of classic go-to-market marketing ATL, BTL sort of way. But for now, we're very happy and proud and successful at essentially communicating our value proposition through the product that we have.
Wonderful, thank you. Please give Natalie a round of applause.
You.